I just want to love you well, and leave you with no iota of doubt. Stanley's words flowed like sweet honey, the warmth of his voice wrapping around Nmesoma like a blanket on a cold night. They sat on a secluded bench near the campus chapel, where Nmesoma had just finished choir practice. The church girl had never felt so alive, her heart pounding against her ribcage at the thought of someone like Stanley professing his love to her. Stanley was the campus celebrity, known for his charm, his sharp fashion sense, and his way with words. Girls flocked to him like bees to nectar. He was every bit the player, a fact well known on campus, except to Nmesoma. She was different. She was the quiet, unassuming girl who wore long skirts, kept her hair natural, and held her Bible tightly every Sunday morning. She lived by principles taught by her strict Christian parents, who raised her to believe that love was pure, unconditional, and sacred. Stanley had his eyes on Nmesoma the moment she walked past him during orientation week. He had made a bet with his friends to win the heart of the most elusive church girl on campus. At first, his friends laughed at him, claiming that someone like Nmesoma would never fall for his tricks. But Stanley was determined. He would play the long game, crafting the perfect lie to trap her in his web of deceit. Stanley, Nmesoma hesitated, her voice barely a whisper. Are you serious about all this? I mean, I don't know if I'm ready for a relationship. He reached out, gently taking her hands in his. I know, Nmesoma. I know you're scared. But I'm not just any guy. I'm different with you. I want to build something real, something lasting. His words bore into hers, searching for the crack in her defenses. I want you to be my everything, Nmesoma. Her heart fluttered. No one had ever spoken to her like this. She felt a rush of warmth and an overwhelming need to believe him, to trust that his words were true. Despite the warnings she had heard about Stanley, despite the hushed gossip among her friends, Nmesoma found herself falling. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Stanley lavished her with attention, always showing up unexpectedly at her lecture halls to walk her to class, or bringing her lunch to make sure you're eating well, he would say. He introduced her to his world, filled with parties, loud music, and late nights. It was nothing like the life she had known. But with Stanley by her side, she felt safe, even when everything around her screamed danger. Soon, Nmesoma found herself playing the role of wife on campus. She would cook for Stanley in his off-campus apartment, clean up after his parties, and even skip classes just to be with him. She ignored the girls who came and went, their coy glances, and the way they giggled whenever Stanley walked by. When she confronted him about it, he would smile and say, "Oh, those? They're just my cousins, babe. You're the only one who has my heart." She believed him because she wanted to. Because the thought of not being enough for Stanley was unbearable. She began to change herself for him, trying to fit into his world. Stanley introduced her to alcohol, a glass here and there at first, to loosen up. Then came the weed. "Just try it, Nmesoma," he urged one evening, holding a blunt to her lips. "It's no big deal. I just want you to experience life with me. All of it." Hesitantly, she took a puff, coughing as the acid smoke filled her lungs. "There you go," Stanley cooed, stroking her back. "Now you are really mine." She felt dizzy, a wave of warmth flooding over her as Stanley's face blurred before her eyes. From that moment, Nmesoma began to drift further from the girl she once was, the church girl who never missed a service or a prayer meeting. Her friends tried to intervene. "Nmesoma, this isn't you." Amaka, her closest friend, pleaded one afternoon. "Becoming someone we don't recognize because of this boy, he's not worth it." But Nmesoma brushed them off, choosing to ignore their concerns. "You don't understand," she snapped, her eyes blazing with an uncharacteristic anger. "He loves me. He wants to marry me." Stanley had painted a vivid picture of their future together. "One day, you and I, we are going to build a family," he would say, holding her close after nights filled with smoke and liquor. "But first, I need to be sure. I need to know that you're ready to go all the way with me." "Anything, Stanley," she murmured, her head resting on his chest. "Anything for you." "Then prove it to me," he replied, his tone suddenly serious. "Pregnant for me. And when you do, we'll terminate it. If you can do that for me, I'll know you're truly mine. Ready for anything." Nmesoma felt a pang of fear at his words, but she quickly suppressed it. She had come too far. She had already given up so much of herself for this love. There was no turning back now. She agreed, convincing herself that this was the ultimate test of devotion. Weeks later, Nmesoma stood outside the clinic, trembling. "This is for us," he reminded her. After inside the clinic, the doctor prepared for the procedure. Nmesoma lay on the cold table, fear gnawing at her insides. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she whispered a silent prayer, begging God for mercy. It was the last prayer she would ever say. Something went wrong during the procedure. Nmesoma's eyes flew open, her body convulsing as a sharp pain teared through her. Outside, Stanley waited, tapping his foot impatiently. When the doctor finally emerged, Stanley's heart skipped a beat. She didn't make it, the doctor said, his voice with regret. There were some complications. We did everything we could, but Stanley's world crumbled around him. He staggered back, the realization of what had happened crashing over him like 8 waves. Nmesoma was dead, and it was because of him. But that was only the beginning of his torment.